Okay guys, previously we stopped here. So we are discussing about the proteins of cell membrane. So what are the actual functions of proteins of cell membrane? So we call it as integral proteins, or you can also say interior proteins or exterior proteins. You can say anything, but mostly we'll call it as integral proteins because present inside the so-called this bilipid layer. They are present immersed inside this ocean of phospholipids. They are present in the cell membrane, right? So what is their main functions, right? They act as channels and pumps for the transportation and facilitation of the ions. For example, you can call it as sodium potassium pump, right? You heard about it, right? Sodium potassium pump, right? You heard about mostly in pharmacology. A million times I think we discussed about the sodium potassium pump, right? So that is one thing. And also for transportation of water, what are those transporters called? Aquaporins, right? So they are called as water channels. They can also be called as water channels because they help in transportation of water, right? And one more function is they use for the transportation of solutes, like you take something like sugars, and also amino acids, then urea, etc. right? So what all these components, if they want to get transported, you need something called this protein made transporters, right? And urea, etc., they all use some sort of a carriers which we mostly call as glucose transporter, right? Glucose transporter. This glucose transporter helps in the transportation and facilitates in the exchange of or transportation of glucose. It is very much important. The deficiency or the abnormality of these transporter leads to some famous conditions. You please write those things in the comment section, right? I can't explain each and everything in the class. Why? Because if I do everything, if I just peel off the banana and keep it in the mouth, then what the hell you will do? Simply digest it? No, I will give you the banana, you peel it off, and you should know how to eat that banana, right? So you have different types of glucose transporters. I will tell at least this one: glucose 1, GLUT 1, GLUT 2, GLUT 3, and GLUT 4. We just want to know the first four GLUT transporters, and I want you to type in the comment section where is the location of the so and so transporter and what is the condition named due to abnormality in GLUT 4 transporter. Abnormal GLUT 4 transporter development leads to which condition? I want to know in the comment section. Okay, so please drop it down in the comment section. Okay, so that is all about GLUT. Now, not only this, if you want to transport some of the water soluble hormones. Sir, water soluble hormones also? Yes, of course. And also if you want to do something neurotransmitter transportation, how they will go? They will obviously use this cell receptors. But what are these receptors? These receptors are nothing but the cell membrane proteins, the integral proteins which are present in the cell membrane. They act as the receptors for all the neurotransmitters. You take it GABA, you take it acetylcholine, you take it adrenaline, noradrenaline, norepinephrine. All these transporters, they need receptors to act. Obvious thing, right? Even the drugs we give, they need receptors to act. Now the final one is the proteins of cell membrane. They can also act as enzymes. So that's why sometimes in the explanations we call something called the cell membrane enzymes. Why we call the cell membrane enzymes? What are these enzymes? These enzymes are nothing but the proteins, the integral proteins present in the cell membrane that are freely floating in the ocean of fluid like phospholipid arrangement. These integral proteins are nothing but they act as enzymes also. And one more thing is they also act as antigens. Yes, they also act as antigens. If you want to know, you should just take it like HLA, or something called this HLA. What is this HLA? Can anyone tell? What are some of the conditions? You name the famous two most common condition where you obviously see an abnormal HLA value. If you want to give some other criteria so that we can cut short down the answers, okay, you take it rheumatology. From the rheumatology, it's okay. From the rheumatology, two most common conditions where most of the cases, absolutely on and always, you will see abnormal HLA. Please drop it down in the comment section. See, I am asking these questions not to torture you, right? Don't think like that. I am asking this in order to make you integrate with the subject, right? See, I can ask you so many things if you really want to. For example, abnormal aquaporins are present in which syndrome? Even I can ask you like that. But why I am asking only the basics? Because first you should get habituated to the topic. After that only we can go into the deeper things. If you want to ask me, I can ask you even more better things like an abnormal aquaporin have a molecular weight of how much? How much molecular weight of aquaporin makes it an abnormal aquaporin? I can ask you like that, right? So, but it's all unnecessary, right? So just we'll go with basics. So enzymes, the proteins. So these, and they can also act as enzymes, they can also act as antigens, human leukocyte antigen, and they also act as cell markers. Yes, they also function as cell markers, etc. So these are some of the functions of integral proteins of a cell membrane, right? Integral proteins of cell membrane. Now we will come to an important component, that is body fluids. Is it important? Yes, it's important for ionization. But will it be given directly? No. It will be given indirectly in a classical clinical MCQ. Now we will discuss some basics of body fluids. Now 60 to 70% of the body weight is water, right? Is water, or it can also be called as total body water. Total body water. So 60 to 70%, right? Now in this, 2/3 is ICF, means intracellular fluid, and 1/3 is ECF, means extracellular fluid, right? 2/3 is ICF, 1/3 is ECF, right? Guys, listen this very carefully, okay? Don't do any mistake. Now if you ask me, there are total of 42 liters of water in the body. For a normal 70 kg adult, I am speaking 70 kg adult, 42 liters of water will be there roughly, okay? In that 28 will be ICF, 28 liters in ICF and 14 liters in ECF. In this 14 liters, something around 11.5 will be in interstitial fluid. Sorry, 10.5 liters will be interstitial fluid, and rest of the 3.5 liters will be plasma. Okay, happy? Now this is what, if you can note it down in a complete numbers, if not in proportions, you can also be taking down in a numbers. So I already said, no, 42 liters total body water, 28 liters ICF and 14 liters ECF. In 14 liters of ECF, 10.5 liters is interstitial fluid and 3.5 liters is plasma. So that is what, if you just note the percentage of different portions of body water in numeric forms, right? Now 1/3 is ECF. Now if you ask me, in this total of ECF, 25% is plasma. We already noted it. 25% is plasma. What is plasma? Where is plasma present? Can anyone? Plasma is present inside vessels. Plasma is present inside vessels. Don't mistake it, please. Plasma is present inside vessel. Don't mistake it for interstitial fluid. One of my students said, like, where is plasma is present? He simply said, sir, it is present outside the tissue. He said, outside the tissue. That's wrong. It's present inside the vessel. Okay. Now you take 25% as plasma, then rest of the 75% will be interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid. Now what is interstitial fluid? Someone might ask you, sir, what is interstitial fluid? See, in shortcut we call it IF. Shortcut we call it IF. Now what is interstitial fluid? It is the fluid between vessels and tissue and cells or tissue. So you can also call it as tissue fluid due to this reason only. Why? Because it is present between vessels and cells or tissue. Now what is the function of interstitial fluid? Interstitial fluid helps in formation of lymph. Formation of lymph. That's why if there is an infection in the cells, it gets transferred. Wait, this is cells, these are cells. It gets transferred into the interstitial fluid. From interstitial fluid, it gets transferred into the vessel. It gets transferred into the vessel. So simply it can get transferred into the vessel. So just 1 minute. What can be taken as the function of interstitial fluid? Transportation. Transportation of substances from vessel to cells and cells to vessels is as simple as like that. So it helps in the formation of lymph. Please remember this statement. Interstitial fluid helps in the formation of lymph. Remember this statement. Now interstitial fluid, it resembles like plasma. It obviously resembles like plasma. But what is the difference? Plasma has something called plasma proteins. Can anyone tell some of the examples for plasma proteins? Albumin, globulin, clotting factors. I asked one of my students, is clotting factor a plasma protein or not? He said not. Clotting factors are not plasma proteins. Why? I was surprised. So plasma proteins are globulins, albumins, clotting factors, right? Now, so interstitial fluids almost resembles like plasma. In fact, plasma has plasma proteins, but interstitial fluid doesn't have any proteins, right? Now where is the interstitial fluid present? As we already discussed, for example, these are the cells. Take it like these are the cells. Okay, these are the cells. Here it is the vessel. Here it is the vessel. This is vessel wall. This is vessel wall. Now here you will have interstitial fluid. Here you will have interstitial fluid. So what happens is, if any substances, for example, here you can have, for example, there is a glucose transporter, right? The glucose gets transported from vessel to cells, and the waste which is expelled from the cell is transported from cells to vessels into the blood. So this interstitial fluid helps in the transportation of substances. You can take it as glucose or some other ways. Please 1 minute, I'll just come 1 minute. Sorry guys, sorry, don't think otherwise, right? So actually a little bit of work is going on in the hospital, so I am just yes, my so-called this class studio is in the hospital itself. Okay, leave it off. So the transportation of substances, for example, the waste which is excreted from the cell gets transported to blood vessel in the through the interstitial fluid. Now most of the doctors, most of the students may think like, sir, is this interstitial fluid that much important topic? Of course it is an important topic. When I will say, when we enter pathology, we will discuss so much about interstitial fluid. Okay, you just stay tuned. Okay, so that is about interstitial fluid, and I will explain with the diagram also. Okay, so nothing much, that will be sufficient for you. Now I want to tell one thing. So this is ICF. This one is ECF. Why? Because interstitial fluid is part of ECF. How much is interstitial fluid in ECF? 75%. Right? ECF 75% is interstitial fluid, 25% is plasma. Okay? Now till then it's clear. If you say clear, it's clear. Clear. Now all exchanges that happens between the cells and vessels, right? All the exchanges that happens between cells and vessels generally occur in interstitial fluid only. Whatever transportation, whatever exchange that happens in between cells and vessels or tissues and vessels, that happens in the interstitial fluid only. And remember one thing, interstitial fluid forms an internal environment. What is this environment? This environment is very much essential during the emergency conditions, something like hypovolemic shocks, hypervolemic shocks, edema, anasarca. All these conditions are exclusively linked with this internal environment, which is exclusively maintained by this interstitial fluid, right? Why? Because we can say it simply by a statement like this maintains a steady state concentration. Now this is an MCQ previously given in 2019 NEET PG, I think. Steady state concentration is maintained by interstitial fluid. Okay, interstitial fluid is maintained in a steady state concentration. Okay, now what is the other name for steady state concentration? Homeostasis. Homeostasis. Now when you come to homeostasis, we should discuss one simple but very important topic. How is homeostasis in a body generally maintained? Generally it is maintained by something called, what is this called? Feedback mechanisms. Feedback mechanisms. What are the three feedback mechanisms? First one is negative. Sir always starts with negative. Why? I will tell you later. A negative feedback. Guys, these feedback mechanisms are very important, not only for INSCT, for also for NEET PG also. This feedback mechanisms is very important, because they will not give question directly, they give you indirectly with a clinical scenario, and they ask you what is the feedback mechanism that is involved here. And the final one is adaptive. It's called adaptive mechanism. Now this one not that much important, but here you have two components. Negative feedback is the most common, or you can also say the common feedback which occurs, feedback mechanism which occurs in the body. Negative feedback only. Positive feedback also occurs, but negative feedback is the most common phenomena regarding feedback regulations which we observe in the body. Now what is negative feedback? Negative feedback is something, stimulus causes inhibition, further decreases this one. So there is a continuous cumulative decrease in the stimulus or reaction. So the reaction tends to stop. Simply to say, the reaction tends to stop or terminate at some point of time. But sometimes change initiates further change. This further initiates change, further causes further. So here the change goes on, means the reaction goes on. It is a positive feedback. For example, we will discuss with the help of example. I will tell you a good example such that you can remember easily. Okay, you take something called baroreceptors. Baroreceptors. Now, anatomical position of baroreceptors is an MCQ. Please comment down in the comment section. Now, if there is an increase in BP, these baroreceptors comes into play, and what they do is decrease the blood pressure to normal. To normal, I say. They will not decrease the blood pressure completely. They bring the blood pressure to normal. Why? Because if there is a decrease in blood pressure, again this baroreceptors only will come into play, and they will bring the BP to normal. So we call it as bringing the BP to normal, not decreasing or not increasing. It is called a, yes, in case of increase in BP they will decrease. In case of decrease in BP they will increase BP. But still we should call it as bringing the BP to normal in both scenarios. So it is a negative feedback because they are going in the opposite direction of the stimulus or the reaction that is actually happening. Means if the BP is increasing, they are bringing it to normal by decreasing it. But positive feedback is something which increases the cycle again and again and again and again. For example, uterine contractions, very famous example for positive feedback. Uterine example is an uterine constriction, uterine contraction. Uterine contractions when I am speaking, uterine contractions during labor. Uterine contractions that occur during labor are one of the best examples for positive feedback. So what these uterine contractions do? When the uterine contractions initiate, when they start, so these posterior segment, right, the posterior segment, this segment is lax, but the anterior segment is contracting. So this one is in a relaxed state. So this will relax, implies this will expand, which enables the baby to come outside. So this one will contract, this one will relax, the baby is coming. Further the impulses still go reach backside even with even more potential. Again the impulses cause contraction of the muscle fibers, further pushing the baby. Again this stretch reflex causes the impulses to move to the backside, that is to the anterior portion of the uterus. Again the impulses are generating with even more stronger contractions, leading to still more progression of the baby. So like that, for every cycle the impulse is being generated, transferred, and is being forwarded through the posterior segment or something like the lower segment. Again the impulse get transferred to the upper segment, again the impulse is generated, again it causes further pushing of fetus. So like that the uterine contractions, they go on, tends to increase in their strength of contractions, further leading to expulsion of fetus. But I will tell you a funny thing and a surprising thing. Positive feedback, they might go in a positive manner only. That means they go on increasing the stimulus or the causative factor, further leading to cycling of the phenomena. But still, even the positive feedback also consists of a negative feedback phenomena. Yes, you might not get it, but I will tell you in a simple way. The positive feedback might only consist of supporting or accelerating of the process, but actually in the background negative feedback also happens with positive feedback. You understand? Positive feedback alone will not occur in most of the scenarios. Obviously, it will be coupled with negative feedback in the background. In the background, the negative feedback will be obviously happening with the positive feedback. So this can clearly give you a sense of negative feedback is the most common feedback regulation that happens in the body. Why? Because, for example, I will tell you, positive feedback can be denoted as a depth feedback. Yes, if you see Guyton and Hall textbook, in the left side, first starting paragraph in homeostasis, the positive feedback can also lead to death. Yes, so that is why, yes, how, for example, if so-called 2 liters of blood is lost during an accident, now what happens? The blood pressure gets decreased, right? Now if the so-called heart tries to pump more blood, but still there is only lower volume of blood, you understand? If the blood pressure decreases, why? Because there is a extreme loss of blood, 2 liters. Now if only 1 liter is wasted during accident, 1 liter hemorrhage occur, the body can compensate it. But if 2 liters has occurred, what happens? Even though the heart tries to pump with more action, but still the blood, the volume of blood that is remained to supply the heart for its pumping action is low. So ultimately the heart may land up into failure. You understand? So even the positive feedback occurs in the body, but still positive feedback might lead to death, right? If you can understand, okay. If you don't understand also, no problem, leave it off. But if you want to get even more in-depth explanation, you can just drop it down in the comment section. So until then, leave it off. Simply remember, negative feedback helps to bring the value to normal, and negative feedback is the most common feedback regulation that occurs in the body when compared to positive and adaptive mechanism. Now we will do something called how you will estimate the fluid chambers, means how much amount of fluid is flowing in their respective components like ECF, ICF, IF, etc., etc., etc. Now if you ask me how we will estimate the total body water, it can be estimated with the help of usage of a components or dyes. In case of total body water, we use something called heavy water. Heavy water. What are those types of heavy water? We use deuterium oxide and tritium oxide, but in these two, deuterium oxide is the most commonly used. Okay, deuterium oxide is the most commonly used dye to estimate the total body water. Now how you will estimate the extracellular fluid or ECF? The dye used for ECF estimation is insulin? No, inulin. Why I have written insulin? Because one of my student, he is a final year student, I asked him, if you remember physiology, if you are a topper, then tell me what is the dye used for the estimation of ECF. He said insulin. Actually he is preparing for PG examination from since third year only. He said insulin. I said it's not insulin, it's inulin. Inulin is the dye used to estimate the ECF, and you can use one more thing called sucrose. Sucrose. Is inulin a sugar? Yes, inulin is a sugar. Can you tell me in which vegetable inulin is present? Can anyone? Beetroot. If you remember the botany perfectly, inulin is present in beetroot. Okay, enough of botany. Now how will you estimate plasma? How will you estimate plasma? By radio labeled albumin, with the help of radio labeled albumin. And you can use another dye called Evans blue dye. Guys, remember these two. Plasma is estimated with the help of radio labeled albumin or Evans blue dye. Okay, so that's about estimation of the fluid chambers. Now we will discuss very important topic, transport. Discuss about transport. It's very important. Just focus here. There are actually two types of transport. One is active, another one is wait. No need to write two. I'll scratch it. So active and passive. What is active? Something which occurs with the presence of ATP. Here you don't need ATP. You don't need ATP. Okay, wait, you will get confused. Better to write like this. So something which happens in the presence of ATP. Here in passive you don't need ATP. Okay. Now this active transport, it acts or it happens against the gradient. This is also called as uphill. Against the gradient means it happens from high concentration to low concentration, right? This is called active transportation. Active transportation occurs from high concentration to low concentration. That means it is going against the gradient. That's why it is called uphill. High concentration to low concentration. Sorry. I said in reverse. Sorry. That's why. Sorry. It happens in low concentration to high concentration. Low concentration to high concentration. Working in a hospital, in your own hospital, and taking the classes is something fishy, guys. Something very clumsy. Okay. So uphill. Active transport occurs from low concentration to high concentration. Just 1 minute, please.